Not only will Drake May be making his first start, he'll be taking on one of the NFL's top teams, which, Phil, we know the Pats have one of the worst offenses in the league.
Tone had changed within the building, and Drake May himself has practiced well.
New England Patriots fans are excited and a little concerned about a brand new decision that the front office officially made. And this could be a decision that either saves their season or sabotages another quarterback that's supposed to fill the gigantic shoes that Tom Brady left behind when he joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So before we get to the content, we're less than 50,000 subscribers away from 1 million subscribers. Make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, we made over $1,000 playing Prize Picks over the past week. We hit on Thursday night and on Sunday, and I would have hit a third time if Aaron Jones didn't get injured. Fortunately, Prize Picks refunds you when a player gets injured. I give away my picks for free on Instagram and now on Snapchat. And make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone to get a free $50 when you make a lineup of $5 or more. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I gotta admit, the New England Patriots season is going exactly how we all expected it so far. So far, they are on a 4-game losing streak. They're the worst team in their division, but believe it or not, they actually still have a chance at making the playoffs. They're only like 2 games behind from the Buffalo Bills. And the New York Jets and Miami Dolphins have also been terrible so far. Originally, I thought this was going to be one of the more competitive divisions in all of football, but the dysfunction of the New York Jets and the injury to Tua Tagovailoa obviously changed things. But throughout the offseason, I've made many videos on the state of the New England Patriots, and primarily I wasn't the biggest fan of their decision making in the offseason. I understand that it was time to move on from Bill Belichick, and I felt like Gerard Mayo was the perfect candidate to take over for Bill Belichick. I don't think that was the wrong decision at all, but I do think that they could have handled some of their assets a little bit better. For instance, they still had Mac Jones on a rookie scale contract. I would have liked to see them keep Mac Jones for another season and trade down from the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft. If you guys remember, during the NFL draft, the Minnesota Vikings offered the Patriots 3 first-round picks for Drake May. They were willing to give up number 11, number 23, and next year's first-round pick. And although I highly doubt any of those draft picks would have been nearly as good as the number 3 overall pick in this year's NFL draft, that's a trade you happily accept when you have several holes in your entire football team, and if the next NFL draft has as much quarterback depth as the current NFL draft, which it does. Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, Jackson Dart. That's all off the top of my head. I didn't even mention Cameron Ward. And when you take a look at the problems that the Patriots have, it's literally at each and every position, except maybe at tight end and cornerback, and that's about it. I mean, no, running back is also above average in my opinion, but this is a team that could have traded down to the 11th overall pick and still selected Brock Bowers, which would have been a great weapon to build around moving forward. Number 23 is where the Jaguars took Brian Thomas Jr. I just feel like they could have handled this NFL draft a little bit better instead of once again drafting the next shiny quarterback that is available to them. And I guess since I've seen teams give up on quarterbacks way too quickly before, I just don't like seeing teams that have complete holes on their entire team move on from their quarterback so quickly. As we've seen so far this year, Justin Fields has been doing a phenomenal job with the Pittsburgh Steelers, playing his best football of his career. Sam Darnold is the most prolific quarterback in the NFL this year, and he's led the Minnesota Vikings to an undefeated record. Baker Mayfield reinvented himself in Tampa Bay. I mean, when you have a quarterback that's getting paid so cheaply, and if you have to build up other aspects of your offense, it's in your best interest to build up the other aspects of your offense first. But from the very beginning, I had questions about this decision, and this is before I mentioned the New York Giants wanting to trade up to the number 3 overall pick with the New England Patriots to select Drake May. The Patriots decided to take Drake May primarily because they saw the demand for the number 3 overall pick, and they figured,
hey, a lot of teams want him, so we should take him.
So that's exactly what they ended up doing. So Drake May gets drafted by a team with a brand new head coach, with an offensive coordinator that has a pretty good reputation, but without any reliable wide receiver targets. So the New England Patriots got got to work trying to find Drake May a reliable wide receiver one. So they pursued Calvin Ridley in the offseason, and Calvin Ridley chose the Tennessee Titans over the New England Patriots. It wasn't even a money thing. He just didn't want to play for the Patriots. The Patriots offered more money than the Titans even. So after a while, when they found out that Brandon Ayuk was available, they also offered to trade for Brandon Ayuk, and they were willing to pay Brandon Ayuk more than the San Francisco 49ers.
New England had the parameters of a trade in place with San Francisco. That wasn't the issue, but they weren't getting a great vibe here as they tried to conduct communication with Brandon Ayuk and his agent. And the longer it went on, the worse they felt about it. And eventually they said, what are we doing here? Let's just focus in on the young receivers that we have. They feel like they're excited about them. And rather than go ahead and give up a huge amount of compensation to the 49ers after or before going ahead to give up what would be a big contract to Brandon Ayuk that he didn't seem overly receptive about getting.
But alas, Brandon Ayuk didn't want to go to the New England Patriots. It's a significant downgrade from his current situation, so he took less money to be with the San Francisco 49ers, and ultimately I think that was a good idea. So clearly players didn't want to play for the Patriots, and the Patriots had an issue because their offensive line is terrible. Their wide receivers aren't necessarily the greatest either. Aside from Demario Douglas, who currently leads the NFL in wide receiver separation percentage. Throughout the first 5 weeks of the NFL season, we kind of saw who the New England Patriots were. In terms of yards per game, the New England Patriots are second to last place. The only team that has a worse offense than the New England Patriots is the Cleveland Browns, who, by the way, that's an entirely different disaster that I feel like I gotta get you guys a new video on. Let me know if you're ready for another Deshaun Watson is absolute hot garbage at his job video, or if you want me to wait a little bit, because we can make a lot of those this year. And at least what I assumed was that Drake May was going to have a redshirt season. He was just going to sit back and watch Jacoby Brissett each and every week take hits behind the worst offensive line in the NFL. But alas, that's not what the plan was after all, because the New England Patriots announced that Drake May is going to be making his first start against the Houston Texans. Now, I personally found this to be comical because CJ Stroud originally said this about Drake May.
I'm in a toss.
Who's the most NFL ready?
I feel like Drake May is. You watch his tape, just his arm talent jumps off. When you watch his tape, he scrambles when he needs to. He throws guys open. He has, like right here, he has rollout ability, different arm angles.
Easter eggs aside, I don't know how I feel about this decision. On one hand, the New England Patriots have the worst offensive line in the NFL. It's not even close how bad they are at pass protection. I mean, if you take a look at this chart in regards to win rate and just Pro Football Focus grade, their offensive line is terrible. So throwing your rookie wide receiver into the fire when he has no offensive line and only Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk to throw the football to doesn't sound like the greatest idea, but it gets even better. Not only does Drake May have no offensive line at all whatsoever, he's making his debut against a top 5 pass rush. You can't make this up. This is like how to ruin a brand new career in like 10 seconds. Now, there's a counter argument to my point, and the counter argument is the fact that Drake May always had terrible offensive lines when he was in UNC. In 2 seasons at North Carolina, UNC allowed 409 pressures from 2022 to 2023, the most out of any FBS school according to ESPN research. Look, man, I understand that he might have experience dealing with terrible offensive lines, but I personally hate the argument.
Oh, a player had a bad offensive line in college. He knows how to deal with it in the NFL.
It's significantly easier to navigate those types of challenges in college football. Like, for instance, take a look at what Jacoby Brissett had to deal with when the New England Patriots faced off against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, this is just brutal. And that's not the only example. I mean, Brissett made some remarkable throws, but even then, he still got a hit. And I just don't know if this is the ideal situation for Drake May to start, but actually, Drake May says he's ready.
The verbiage of calling the huddles, I felt pretty good with the verbiage there. So other than that, excited for these these guys. I think it's an opportunity against a good football team to go out there and prove people wrong.
I mean, look, man, I've seen this in the past. I've seen scenarios where quarterbacks come into situations where they don't necessarily have the greatest offenses built around them, at least not on paper, and they come and they elevate the team into a legitimate playoff contender, kind of like what happened with the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud last year. But in the case of the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud had a blindside protector in Laramie Tunsil, a wide receiver one in Nico Collins, a dependable tight end in Dalton Schultz, a strong defense that had multiple top 5 picks in the form of Derek Stingley Jr. and Will Anderson, a defensive-minded head coach. It's just, you can't really compare the scenarios. This is literally taking Drake May and throwing him into the fire, hoping he can figure it out with absolutely no weapons. At that point, why didn't you just keep Mac Jones? I personally don't know, but hey, I've gotten takes wrong before, but on paper, this just seems like a horrible decision, and I feel like this is gonna ruin the kid's career, and I hope I'm wrong, but if you're a Patriots fan, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think? Do you think that Drake May might surprise you? Or do you think we're gonna get Bryce Young part 2? Because for the most part, Drake May is pretty much being placed in the same situation Bryce Young was put in last year. Clip this, save it, because in about 3 to 4 weeks from now, we're gonna be coming back to this take to see if I was correct or if I was incorrect. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.